I was not happy about being forced into playing a role, as if I was a baptized member of any cult. I could not do much about their ungrounded belief that such a friendly person with a nice character could only be one of our brothers. Every time I attempted to do something about it, multiple hindrances were placed in front of me, as if to indicate that it was not the right time yet. I often asked myself, would there be any opportunity for me to stop living an undesired, and certainly not planned, double life? I simply kept going, while leaving them to believe whatever they wanted. I was tired of being judged, condemned, and discriminated against. I prefer to live a life of peace, and a life uniquely mine with some minor secrets which are of no concern to anybody. I felt like a clown entertaining everybody around me. My inner thoughts have never been supportive of those cultist movements, and religions of men were not appealing to me with their repeating history of perfect ignorance. Since I had applied for additional courses through another university in Bavaria, I often commuted between Stuttgart and Munich. It was a long and arduous journey, but was worth it. I could study a few more subjects in addition to what I was doing, or choose to remain with one of them at a later date. There were a few more entry exams to follow. I could do one involving direct study, and one by correspondence, but my Tübingen application was the first to be accepted. I was interested in studying medicine, and needed to decide on what branch of it was more suitable for me. I was passionate about anatomy, and fascinated with the subject. I borrowed many books, spending hours in libraries just to read all about anatomy and also astronomy. Two different, but at the same time highly valuable subjects. I was interested to know more about the exterior universe, as well as the interior one. I needed to take some of the books home to study or prepare my essays on a variety of important topics. This meant I had to stay awake for most of the night before going to work in the morning, and then going to the campus. In fact, I was thoroughly enjoying my activities, for I was continually on the move. As time passed, I became even better friends with the Strohbachs, without any emotional or serious attachments, so far having no particular worries. We used to speak about almost any subject, but when it came to issues concerning study at one of the universities, although outwardly supportive, I discovered they were not completely in favor, for they were influenced by witness ideals. I therefore felt the need to keep my studying secret, knowing that it would really surprise them. Would they approve? Then again, I was completely independent. They were trying hard to do whatever they could to adopt me as their son, for they could not have any children of their own, as previously mentioned. However, would they attempt to virtually divorce me from my parents completely? I would never do that to my mother. Maybe they did not know what they were getting themselves into. Maybe it was possible for them to adopt me without denying my parents' rights. In the early days I noticed that Ruth's father remained at home, only going out occasionally. He did not look old, although he suffered from a major health problem, and always appeared to be busy doing things, never giving the impression of being seriously ill. A short while later, he was admitted to hospital. From then on, I was never able to see him, as he died. His daughter had a close resemblance to him, with her facial expressions. I never discovered what he died from. Ruth was saddened, but at the same time was very happy that, as her father wished, he was now part of the 144,000 members of the smaller flock, allegedly serving with Christ in the heavens. In fact, those who belonged to that upper class were the ones entitled to share the unleavened bread and wine, symbolically representing the sacrificed body of Christ and his spilt blood. I was not invited to the hospital or her father's funeral. Although it was sad, they did not cry for their loss, but were happy that he was apparently going to live forever in the heavens, as it was written in their Bible. Seeing people who did not cry for their loss was remarkable and very unusual to me, but I was not in favor of displaying emotions either. I discovered that modern German is a beautiful language, especially in poetry and song. But it is not a romantic one, expressing some of the finer human emotions, as in Latin languages, like French or Italian. However, English, although sharing the same origins as German, is richer in expressing romantic human emotions. Germans have been inventive in creating alternatives to compensate the obvious lack, as one can discover in Goethe's and Schiller's wonderful works. On the other hand, I can also say that German literature is fabulously rich with artistic expressions, which cannot be translated into another language without losing its essence. If you desire to enjoy the music of Wagner, you may need to understand some finer expressions of the German language, just like well-educated and highly cultured Germans would. However, for a newcomer in the country, the language appears to be just black and white with their day-to-day usage. This makes people sound very frank with their expressions. One immediately knows where one stands, whether one is being told lies or the truth. This made it easier to learn to think the way they did, and easier still to learn the way they expressed themselves. Interestingly, I was able to comprehend a variety of German dialects from north to south, from Hamburg to Bavaria. I believe I surprised many people with my interest in languages, as I still do. Out of necessity throughout the years, I have learned about 16 languages, plus several dialects. As the years passed, I learned a little more about the ways of Germans, but let me tell you a little story which may amuse you. One night, unable to sleep, my mind crowded with many worries about some of my exams, I decided to look into my textbooks and study. I had my bedroom door slightly ajar, without wanting to disturb anybody, only a chink of light escaping into the corridor. I heard Ruth whispering something, evidently trying to see what I was doing. Noticing this, I opened the door to discover her rushing back to their bedroom next to mine in absolute fear. She was panicking, and I was shocked about what I might have done wrong. I thought that perhaps my having the light on was not seen appropriate, or perhaps she was worrying that I was wasting electricity. However, how could that be, as I was paying for all my expenses? I approached their door to see if she needed help, but she was uncontrollably shocked and worried. As she approached the door, there was a loud thump, as if a big bag full of clothing had fallen onto the wooden floor. I rushed to their door, asking if they needed any help, in case somebody had fallen or was hurt. She tried to shout, but her voice was husky and very soft as she said, "Go, you devil! What are you trying to do?" Eventually she managed to shout, "I did not realize he is practicing devil worship." Obviously, I had no chance to talk to her at that moment and make sense of it needing to wait until the following evening when I was back home. The reception was icy cold, and I tried to ignore it first, but I felt the need to talk before we had the evening meal. Otherwise, I was going to pack up and disappear. There was no response to what I told them, and began to think of getting a small flat close to the campus where I was studying. A few days later, I told them that I was going to look for different accommodation. When finally Ruth opened up and Siegfried kept asking me how I did that, I could not understand what I had seemingly done, so I asked what it was all about. Both of them started explaining their ordeal during the night, speaking at the same time. I asked them if they could be more specific and tell me all about it, one by one and slowly, so that I could understand them. Ruth started to recite a little witness prayer and explained what had happened. During that night, she said, I woke up suddenly when I felt our tuna being lifted up, wondering if Siegfried had just rolled in it and I was not under the cover. So I got up and turned the bedside lamp on, to discover to my shock and horror that my Siegfried was at the ceiling with all the cover still on him, draping on his sides, and he was still snoring. Then I noticed the light coming from your door. I came to your door and noticed the books with pictures of human skulls on them. Interestingly, I was studying for my exams, and told her I could not sleep, and so decided to read the books I borrowed from the library. Do you wish to look at them? She could not contain herself, repeatedly asking, So then, now what were you doing at that time of the night? I had to explain again that I was looking at some interesting books I had borrowed from the library. Slightly calmed, both of them spoke to me at the same time, and explained that they thought I was doing black art. Apparently, when she returned to their bedroom and turned on the light, Siegfried fell down onto their bed. Although he did not hurt himself, he was in great shock. I suppose anybody else would feel that way too, that is, if they experienced something like that. I felt none of these had actually happened. But in their imagination their phobias were realized in regard to what they superstitiously feared, but their understanding of me practicing black art and trying to harm them did not sound right. I told them perhaps I should find different accommodation and leave them, as they were so incredibly scared of me trying to do black magic. I did not wish to put up with that also, but a few days later they decided that to do something like that on my part would be impossible. After all, they had helped me in the recent past, and certainly I would not be so wicked to conjure up bad spirits doing evil things. However, judging my mother by the gossip they listened to from other witnesses, they believed that she was a witch, as she read coffee grounds and told fortunes, and they felt the need to help Suren completely break away from her, for he could be badly affected by her wicked spells. They had already burnt a beautiful rug my mother sent, which was made especially for me, later telling me all about it, proud of their great help. Another time my mother sent me a pair of sturdy boots for winter, but I never saw them. As soon as they arrived, the Strohbachs had to burn them in the backyard, later telling me conceitedly how happy they were to burn those lovely boots my mother sent, and how they resembled human vertebrae after being burnt. They were so happy helping me keep away from her witchcraft. When I heard these things, I was extremely saddened about their adherence to such terrible superstitions due to their cultist belief. I was immensely saddened for my mother, who spent so much effort and money on those items. Much later I bought a book called Aberglaube, Superstition, and used to purposely display it on my desk and still keep it today. It is an interesting memory for me, and I knew that it attracted Siegfried's attention, as he also bought a copy. Let me tell you a little about Sibyl, a girl Siegfried was keen to introduce me to.